Hello and welcome to this new episode of Triple Threat. I'm Mikhil Vats, and joining me once again is William Ezell. Chase Dawkins could not be here with us today. He is off for the weekend. We hope he is enjoying whatever he may be doing and wherever he may be. And a lot has happened in sports since our last show, Will, specifically in the MLB with all the trade rumors, all the deadline news. But we'll start in the NBA with breaking news for the Houston Rockets. Clint Capela has re-signed with Houston on a 5-year, $90 million deal. What do you think about this deal, and which teams do you think it's disappointing for?
I mean, I called it last podcast that he was holding out with that first offer rejected by showing his statement of intent that he was worth the max contract and that someone in the league would pay his max contract. So they better up that offer and give him a long-term deal. So he got his money and Houston gets their man. So I think that last season he was Houston's third best player and arguably second best player because what he does on defense really makes up for what Harden doesn't do. So if they didn't have him last season, they would not be as good as they were. They added Carmelo. They added Capella on a new contract. This is a statement of intent. So showing that all of their big players are on big contracts for the long term, showing that they are in it for the long run and not in it for 1 or 2 good years. This team's going to be good for a long time, maybe even for the entire duration of Capella's contract. Capella's only 24. He'll only be 29 at the end of this contract. By that time, he could have at least 2 or 3 All-Stars. This guy can be that good in the league. He had 14 points a game. He had 2 blocks a game, and he was shooting 65% from the field. That guy was a monster last season.
I think that it's a great re-sign for the Rockets, obviously, because he's such an important piece to the team. 14 points per game, as you mentioned, 11 rebounds per game last season, and of course, that's a double-double, very impressive. And when you think of Clint Capella, you don't think about his stats. You think about the impact he makes on the court. Obviously, like on the defensive side, as you mentioned, averaging 2 blocks per game. But what he does best is he creates turnovers. He's such a threat to teams when they're on offense. He creates turnovers, allows possession for the Rockets, and creates scoring opportunities for his teammates because of his defense. And that's why you see the Rockets put up so many points, especially three-pointers. And now with the addition of Carmelo Anthony, they're only going to put up more points, and they're only going to get more possessions.
I mean, he was the opposite of what the scheme he was playing in. Houston plays a very offensive-based type of basketball, and adding Carmelo Anthony is really a statement of that. 3 big, good shooters, big-name shooters. That is a big addition for the team. They say that they can get the best out of Carmelo Anthony, and I believe they can. Having a player who's on the top 25 of assists right now and is the highest assist leader that's still playing in the league right now with almost 10,000 is really crucial. Chris Paul's going to give him the looks that he needs. He's going to give Capella the looks that he needs. He's going to give Harden the looks he needs. And I think this is a team that is one of 2 teams that could actually rival the Warriors for a championship this season. That other team would be the Celtics. You need 4 All-Stars to win a championship nowadays. You have to have 4.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Capella is only 24 years old. When the contract ends, he'll be 29 and he'll be in his prime. That'll be his best years for maybe it'll be the Houston Rockets once again. Maybe it'll be a different team. I think it's very disappointing for the Lakers. Obviously, he could have gone there, been a great running mate for LeBron. He would have helped LeBron a lot, in my opinion. But Lakers fans were really excited when they heard that Capella turned down the Rockets offer because they really thought that Capella could have gone to the Lakers. And I think the Lakers did a good job just staying calm, not going after him, not giving him that big money because you only have one more max contract slot left. Of course, they used one on LeBron. Of course, Paul George was the rumored second max contract slot. But when you look at next year's free agency, you've got guys like Kawhi Leonard, Kyrie Irving, Klay Thompson, just to name a few. So you save that slot for someone next year, and that's why I think it's a good move by the Lakers holding off on Capella and a great resign for the Rockets. Could not have played out better.
I thought Kyrie had 2 years left on his contract, but that doesn't matter. Capela's 11 rebounds and that defensive impact on the team really would have been crucial for the Lakers having a championship push this season. But they're probably waiting out for a mid-season or late end of season acquisition of Kawhi Leonard. They could have gotten him as a free agent at the end of the year. But if the Raptors are doing too hot at the end of the year and they're like 500 just above, like 8 seed in the playoffs, they're not going to be Kawhi's not going to want to resign, and they're going to try to get some value out of him before he leaves. So they might try to the Lakers might try to swoop in, maybe give some young players and a draft pick up to get Kawhi.
And moving on to a guy who's much older than Clint Capela, 17 years older to be specific, Vince Carter signed a 1-year, $2.4 million with the Atlanta Hawks. Will, I know we talked about this earlier, but you got to tell the people what you think about this move.
I love this move. Vince Carter is going to walk in the Hall of Fame when he retires, probably after this season. Maybe even one more if he can stay to 42 in the league. As a player in such a high demanding sport, stay in the league for 21 years. I don't know. He played 3 years of college. If I'm wrong, please correct me. But this guy has played basketball for a long time. He's played in the NBA longer than Trae Young's been alive. This guy is going to give so much experience for young players. He was a rookie. He was a great rookie himself, averaging 18 points a game in his rookie season for the Raptors. This guy is going to give so much experience for this team. Sure, he hasn't been good since 2013, and he only allowed 11 points that season. But Vince Carter is a legend of the game. He will teach players how to be good. He'll teach players how to shoot because he is a great shooter, shooting almost 45% in his prime. And what Vince Carter can do for these young players is so crucial. I can't even put it into words. The only analogy I can really give to this is how Aaron Rodgers sat under Brett Favre for a couple of years. And when he left, he became a star. Brett Favre nurtured him into the great player that he is now. He is a top 2 quarterback in the league. And maybe Trae Young could be a top 10 point guard in this league. But Vince Carter will have to develop him into a star. And I think with the coaching staff and with Vince Carter, he's basically like a new coach. And he could also sell shirts. He could potentially sell his contract in shirts. And that would be amazing for the Hawks. I think this is a win-win situation for everybody on the Hawks.
Yeah, I also really like the move, and I'm really not too excited about young teams bringing in older guys. I really don't want to say older guys, but Vince Carter is 41 years old, and you're right, he did play 3 years at UNC, but he's been an 8-time All-Star. Obviously, didn't have his best season, 5.4 points per game. But when you bring in an NBA legend, especially a Raptors legend, you bring in, like you said, he's like a coach. He's going to play the role of a coach. He's not going to see a lot of minutes this season. But you bring in a guy like Vince Carter, you're bringing in a coach to help the young players like Trae Young, Omari Spellman, and Kevin Huerter. You're going to help them grow. You're going to help them mature, and you're going to help them get a sense of what the league is like and what to expect later on in their career. I really like the move.
They brought Jeremy Lin to do the same job for them, but can you compare Jeremy Lin's experience in the league to a player like Vince Carter? Jeremy Lin was an average player in the league at best. He had 1 year of insanity at the Knicks. And what has he done since then? Nothing. This guy's on a $10 million contract to sit on the bench and coach players. He also has a major injury problem. So I think this is the move that the Hawks should have done first, and they should have never signed Jeremy Lin on a $10 million a year contract in a trade from the Nets. So moving on to the next topic, we have MLB trade deadline coming up in a little bit over a week. And there's some big rumors going around right now. But the one I really want to talk about is Bryce Harper going to the LA Dodgers. Apparently, this could happen. If this does, this would change the face of the league. The MLB would have its first super team. They would have a team they just signed Manny Machado on a trade with the Orioles, who was their only glimpse of hope in this dismal season they've been having. And bringing in a player of his caliber who's won an MVP, only 25 years old, and has had such a great time in the league right now. He's had 25 home runs, second most in the league. He led the league in 2015 with 42 home runs. He had 118 runs that season, which means he can score as well, which is the most important part. He won MVP that year. This guy is one of the best players in the league, and he can become the best in the next couple of years. He hasn't even hit his prime yet, which is the scary thought. You can just score. This guy scores for fun. This guy has a 216 batting average, which is pretty dismal this season, but he had a 320 last season. And if he can replicate that for the Dodgers, if he signs for them, that would be huge for them. But he's still doing good numbers. He has a 364 on base percentage, which is great for him and for any player in the league. And that's what really counts in the league is getting on base.
And yeah, moving on to MLB real quickly, I just want to correct myself. Vince Carter is not an 8-time All-Star, even better for the Hawks. But in the MLB, obviously, like you said, a lot of rumors, a lot of trades going on. We saw Eduardo Escobar go to the Diamondbacks. We saw Asdrubal Carrera head to the Phillies. And a trade that I really like is Cole Hamels going to the Chicago Cubs. Obviously, he was an All-Star in 2016, 2012, and 2011. He's not having his best season, having a 4.72 ERA, but that's okay considering the Cubs have a guy like Tyler Chatwood, who is second in the MLB in losses. And when you're a postseason team and a World Series contender, you cannot have a guy like Tyler Chatwood. It's unacceptable to have a guy like Tyler Chatwood on your team when you are World Series contenders. So I think Cole Hamels is a great addition. He's either on, and when he's on, he's elite, or he's either off. So it's hard to tell. But the Cubs have guys like that, like Jose Quintana, and they'll get better. Cole Hamels will get better with the Cubs. He has time before the postseason will come around, and I really like the pickup. Obviously, they can say goodbye to Chatwood, and they can say hello to a new pitching rotation in John Lester, Kyle Hendricks, Jose Quintana, and Cole Hamels. So I really like the trade.
And that's a pretty good pitching core. And we saw what Lester did in that World Series run in 2016. He was instrumental in them reaching the final and winning it. And that's why I think this is a team that could win it this season. There's a lot of teams challenging in the National League. It's not as dominant as the American League, but I see whoever wins this, if they can make the World Series, they won't make it farther than that because the American League is so dominant right now.
Yeah, the American League is so dominant, as you said, and the Yankees they stand out in my book, especially when it comes to the trade deadline, acquiring a guy like J.A. Happ and acquiring a closer, one of the best in the league, Zach Britton, from the Orioles. And I honestly did not understand this move. I thought that they could have gotten a different player. They already have, in my opinion, the best closer in the game in Aroldis Chapman. I think they could have used the two prospects that they gave up. I want to say it was the number 9 prospect and the number 15 prospect. I don't know their names, but the prospects that they gave up to the Baltimore Orioles for Zach Britton could have been used on someone else, maybe a replacement for Aaron Judge in the next month. That's what I think the prospects could have been used on. But honestly, when you can get a closer, take them.
I mean, the tanks are rolling full steam in Baltimore. They thought this year would be a playoff run for them, and they've underperformed massively. And I said before, this is a dismal year for them. And they really realize that they have to get rid of all of their assets right now because if they don't, they're just going to be rolling in for the next 3 years on a terrible, mediocre team that doesn't do anything in the league. So they're trying to get the most for their assets, and they're trying to clear out and potentially be good in the next 5 years. But the Orioles, dang, what a shame's happened to that organization.
Yeah, and there are rumors that Adam specifically to the Phillies, but let's go back to Aaron Judge. Obviously, he got that injury last night when he was hit by a pitch, fractured wrist, and the MLB said he's out 3+ weeks. I honestly think he'll be out for more than 3 weeks with a fractured wrist. What do you think?
He'll be out for the half of the next season, half of this season. We still have 2 more months of baseball left to play, and I think this injury is going to stall the Yankees' push, but this isn't going to stop it completely. Aaron Judge is their best player by a long shot. You can argue other people, but are you really going to argue against a guy who had 52 home runs in his rookie season? No, you're not. He leads the league right now with 26 home runs, and he has over 400 on base percentage. You can't replace his numbers, but Giancarlo Stanton can try. They had one power hitter last season in Judge, and they can probably last a month without him. I think this isn't going to hurt them. This might see the Red Sox charge ahead and win the division, but even no matter where they place in the playoffs, they will make it, and they can make it to the World Series. They can beat any team in the league. They have a pitching core that's insane. They have an incredible batting lineup with two of the best hitters in the league that could both hit 50 home runs any season. This is a great team that's young and on the rise, and I think this could be a team that can dominate like the Yankees of the past. They've won 27, and I don't see why they can't win 28 this season. And I don't think this injury really hurts their chances.
And yeah, they can beat any team with or without Aaron Judge. And it's don't get me wrong, he could come back in 3 weeks. It's a chip fracture, not a full fracture, but I still think he'll be out for more than 3 weeks. But when you lose a guy like Aaron Judge and you're fighting for the division against a team like the Boston Red Sox, who has players like Mookie Betts, Xander Bogaerts, recently acquired Nathan Eovaldi. I mean, that's just too good of a team. They also have JD Martinez, and then those goes on. That's just too good of a team, and you can't lose a player like Aaron Judge, especially after losing their catcher Gary Sanchez to the 10-day DL. You can't afford an injury after losing one of your best players, Gary Sanchez. So it's going to be tough for the Yankees. Obviously, they still have guys like Stanton, as you mentioned, and Didi Gregorius, but it's just going to be tough considering they have to go against a Boston Red Sox team with JD Martinez, Mookie Betts, list goes on. And like you said, they'll make the playoffs, wild card or division leader, but it'll be the wild card now that Aaron Judge is going down for 3 or maybe more.
I mean, is it going to be the same Aaron Judge that comes back? He's going to be out for 3 weeks, but are we going to see the Aaron Judge that hit 52 home runs last season?
Exactly.
No. But a shadow of his former self is still a great player. I mean, he'll be back 100% by the playoffs, and I think that this is only a good thing. I mean, winning a playoff game, like the wild card game, can only give confidence to a team, and having a player come back from injury can give confidence to a team. So I really think that this is going to be, at the end of it all, a problem that it's going to be a speed bump in this Yankee train.
Yeah, and Aaron Judge, we saw him last season after he had that tremendous first half of the 2017 season. After the first half of that 2017 season, he fell off. He was not playing as well. He was not living up to the hype, and he struggled. He honestly struggled. And now that he has an injury, of course it was his rookie season in 2017, but now that he's coming back from an injury, it could be just as hard, and especially a wrist injury in baseball, that could be very hard. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out after the next 3 weeks, and it could be more, but we'll move on to NFL training camp. Obviously, there has been a lot of news around sports and the NFL with players holding out. Julio Jones, who finally reported to camp on Thursday. Earl Thomas still holding out, and I've heard, Will, that you have some news on Earl Thomas for us.
Earl Thomas has been holding out for a couple days now. He's not going to come into practice, and the Seahawks said they're not even going to listen to talks over a new contract if he doesn't come to practice. He is one of the best free safeties in the league, and he was part of that Legion of Boom team that led the Seahawks to their Super Bowl win, only one of their 2 Super Bowl wins of their entire career. Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter are both reporting that that he wants the new deal, and that if he doesn't, he's going to go to Dallas. We know in the Dallas game last season that he went to the locker room and asked for a move, and I think that can only be a bad thing for a locker room, and I think the Seahawks should get rid. They're not going to make the playoffs this season with the team that they have, so why not try to get money out of your asset that you have. You can get a good value for him right now. And even if it is only like a first round pick, that could be the next Earl Thomas. Who
Yeah.
can say that you can't draft another player of his caliber again? They did a good job drafting defensively. And even though they drafted Rashad Penny, who wasn't the first running back, who wasn't even many people's second choice running back off the board, he'll still do well in the league. And maybe the Seahawks see something in him. But I say that this organization is going downhill. They don't have to pay Russell Wilson. They don't have to pay their players. And the recipe for success right now in the league is having a young quarterback and surrounding him with talent by spending big, because you're not paying him $20 million a year. It's only like $5 million a year, and that frees you up another player that you can afford with a mega contract. And that's what worked for Seattle. That's what's working for the Rams right now. And I can only see this being a spiral into a tank for the Seahawks.
Yeah, it's obviously a big situation for the Seahawks, especially after losing a guy like Richard Sherman, who was arguably the face of the franchise for the past couple of years when they made a couple of Super Bowl runs. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out with Earl Thomas. And obviously, like you said, he went into the Dallas locker room asking Jason Garrett, specifically saying, "Come out and get me," in the offseason. So it'll be interesting. Maybe he'll go to Dallas. Maybe he'll go to a different team that needs him. It'll be interesting. But NFL Network do their training camp live coverage, which they have done a tremendous job with. And the Ravens are a very underrated team. Of course, they suffered that devastating loss to the Cincinnati Bengals. Last-second touchdown by Tyler Boyd. The Ravens, that's why they didn't make the playoffs, and that's why they're such an underrated team. They're one of the best defenses in the league. They've got guys like Eric Weddle, Jimmy Smith, C.J. Mosley, Terrell Suggs. List goes on. They led the league in turnovers last season, forced turnovers, 34 turnovers in total, 22 interceptions, and 12 fumble recoveries make up that 34. And they also scored the most points off of turnovers, led the NFL in that category. So I think the Ravens are definitely going to be contenders for the playoffs in the AFC once again, just because how good their defense is. And they're making improvements on the offense, obviously drafting Lamar Jackson, QB from Louisville, we'll see. Will he live up to his expectations? That's a big question. And then acquiring a guy like Michael Crabtree, who's a great veteran coming from the Oakland Raiders. So I think it's interesting. The Ravens definitely are a team to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and people sleep on the fact that they have also another elite quarterback in Tavon Young, and their quarterback that they drafted, he could be the next Michael Vick. Michael Vick himself said this kid has more talent than he did, and he changed the league when he came into the league. There's no telling what he can change coming to the league. Lamar Jackson is a dual threat as a quarterback. That is a sentence that you don't hear often. Maybe Cam Newton can be a dual threat, having the most rushing yards on the Panthers. But I think that this was a great pickup. He could sit up for the first year, learn under Joe Flacco, who plays a pretty bland brand of football, and it could only be up. Flacco only had one 4,000 plus passing yard season, and I think that you can't get much worse than that. That's not great numbers from a franchise quarterback, in their opinion. So I think it was a good time to draft Lamar Jackson, and they got a good value for him, drafting him at 32.
You know, a guy that I really like watching him in training camp is the Dolphins for pick. I want to say he went 11. Miami Dolphins. Minka Fitzpatrick. He's looked very well. He has been impressing me. Oh my. He is a talent. He's gonna be a top cornerback. Maybe not top, but top 3 at some point in his career. He's gonna be up with those guys like Richard Sherman, Jalen Ramsey, Patrick Peterson, Xavier Rhodes. He could even do it. He could even pull off a Marshawn Lattimore in his first year. He's an insane talent. I really like that guy coming out of Alabama.
And more news from training camp in the Raiders. Apparently, Khalil Mack is also holding out for a contract. But this one has a sour turn, as Khalil Mack and coach John Gruden are apparently not even on speaking terms. And I think this is a good sign for the rest of the league because John Gruden's on a 10-year, $100 million contract. So he's not going to change his mind, or Khalil Mack's not going to outlast him. He doesn't have more power in this say. So Khalil Mack could be out when his contract expires this or next season. I'm not 100% sure. But every team in the league is going to be swarming for his signature, as he is the second best defensive player in the league and the best player on that Raiders team. Khalil Mack is a guy who can play outside linebacker or defensive end, and that versatility is really needed in a lot of organizations in the league. And any team, he could walk into any organization in the league. He could walk into that stout linebacking core in Minnesota. So I really think that this is going to be a big loss if this feud continues to last in Oakland.
Yeah, Khalil Mack is definitely the best player on that Oakland Raiders team, and you can't argue that Derek Carr is better. Show me that you can't. You're not injury prone. Obviously, suffered that big injury. You can't argue that Bruce Irvin is a better player. You can't argue that Jordy Nelson is a better player. You can't argue that any other Oakland Raider is better than Khalil Mack, which is why they need to re-sign him.
And speaking of Bruce Irvin, he said himself that they need to re-sign Khalil Mack because he said sign him over taking Earl Thomas. And that's big words because he played with Earl Thomas in Seattle in that Legion of Boom team that won that Super Bowl. But so this is really, really big news. The players want to sign Khalil Mack, but the coach doesn't. This could lead to a fallout in the dressing room. But so I really think that this is something to watch out for and see if this resolves itself in the next few weeks.
And, he could be going to a different team later in this offseason, but we'll see. We'll see. Kevin Durant has made some big comments that have been trending lately, specifically on CJ McCollum's podcast. He said that the Blazers do not stand a chance at winning the NBA championship this season. CJ McCollum later posted this on Twitter. I still think the B word is harsh and shouldn't be used. He know that decision was soft, but I respect it. It's like getting jumped with your brothers by a gang you should have beat, then joining the gang that jumped you and your brothers 2 months later and forgetting about your bros. Kevin Durant later responded with this. So, I would get into a gang fight, lose, plumb on my brother for 2 months in our home, and then go to the gang we lost to and beat him up? You think that low of me, CJ? I just did your blank podcast. Snakes in the grass, boy, I tell ya, laughing emoji. What do you think about this comment by Kevin Durant and even CJ McCollum, Will?
I mean, I've heard that Kevin Durant coming into his own, that this is Kevin Durant finally showing his true colors. And he's having a freedom, and he's not hiding behind a burner account. He's saying it himself. He's being bold. And I think this is going to only be good for Kevin Durant. He's the second best player in the league. He's going to play fiery. He's going to talk trash. He's going to play better. This is going to get in the mind of the opposing teams. And this is going to lead to the Warriors being dominant. In the statement that he said, is he wrong? Are they ever going to win a championship? Because
no way.
They're not even a top 5 team in the West anymore. They got swept by the Pelicans without Boogie, and Boogie's now on the Warriors. You don't stand a chance. So I think that Durant is technically right in what he said, but I think CJ made a good point. I think what he said was a pretty true analogy because you can refer to gangs as teams, but and I think that makes sense because he forgot about Russell Westbrook and that Oklahoma City team, and I just think that it's a bit of a snake move going to cop out to the team that you lost to, and then joining that, and then winning with them and winning the last 2 championships. But I mean, look at him now. He's made his game better. He's won 2 championships. He's made his resume better. It was a good decision for him, and that's all I can say. He got his money. He got his championships. He's got better as a player. He's now on the conversation for being a top 25 player of all time.
Yeah, the Blazers don't stand a chance, especially in the West, when you have to go up against the Warriors if you are going to even make the playoffs. And don't get me wrong, I respect CJ McCollum. I think he's a great player. But Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, the Portland just has to figure out that CJ McCollum's not the guy they want running with Damian Lillard. And Damian Lillard will even fit somewhere else. I'd like to see him go to Utah. I think he'd be a great fit with Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert. But even with the Lakers, he'd be a great running mate with LeBron. LeBron even said, you know what, give me Dame and I'll show you what I can do. So obviously that Dame could possibly go to a different team. But back to Kevin Durant and CJ McCollum. Kevin Durant's just being himself, like you said. He's a top 2 player, obviously behind LeBron. He's been a top 2 player for almost his whole career. But yeah, CJ McCollum does bring up a good point. It's just different. It's different to see NBA players do these type of things in the off season nowadays because the culture is so different. But we have to get used to the new NBA. Obviously, there's the Drew League. There's now a lot of social media, and CJ McCollum obviously has his own podcast. And when you bring Kevin Durant on your own podcast, you have to expect him to say something like that. It's Kevin Durant. He plays for the Golden State Warriors. No, you have to expect that.
I mean, this is part of the league now. The fans growing up having to deal with this, and it's going to be a bigger and bigger part of the league. If you don't manage your social media well, your career can stagnate. You can see how a personality can affect the player. Kawhi Leonard is such a quiet player. He's so shy and keeps to himself. And he surrounds himself with bad people, which gives him a bad rap. But people who use social media effectively can bolster their chances of getting a new contract, getting a new team, and winning a championship. So I find that as a new crucial part of the league. And although people may not like it, it's something that's happening.
And can we just talk about Kawhi for a second? I like how you said he's a very quiet guy, and you don't see many quiet guys in the league, especially now. But Kawhi, I want to just talk about his mood. Obviously, that one picture came out on Bleacher Report and on the Toronto Raptors social media page of Kawhi actually smiling in the Toronto Raptors practice facility. But his mood with the team and his mood is honestly just so disappointing to me. He mentioned that he is not going to the Team USA training camp because Coach Pop is coaching it. Like, if you can't respect the greatest coach in the league today, I don't know. I don't know what type of player you are. You have to respect Coach Popovich.
I mean, Popovich has lost his touch with younger players in the league. I mean, Tim Duncan was the last. He was a European player, and he grew up with harsh coaches. But players nowadays are coming up with softer coaches. The coaches are begging them to play for them. They make their resume better by having a player that is good coach for them. Coaches are begging players to recruit them for college. Coaches are begging them to stay. They don't have to work for anything. There's no harsh coaches anymore. And that's why Popovich has lost his touch, because he's such a harsh coach with the players. And that is why this could be a downfall of Popovich as a coach. I'm not taking any shots from him. He is probably one of the greatest coaches of all time, and I think he's the greatest coaches in the league right now. So,
for sure.
You can't take shots at him, but he has lost his touch. We saw what happened with players recently that are trying to jump ship from the Spurs after that championship team.
That'll do it for Triple Threat. Thank you for listening, and tune in on Monday for the newest episode. But for now, I'm Mikhil Vats signing off. William Ezell, thank you very much. Good night from Atlanta.